welcome everyone to the second episode of our Women at Explio podcast series. I am Srija Datta, your host, one of the project leads at Explio. I'm very excited to welcome you to this special episode, which is dedicated to Mental Health Awareness Week. If you have already listened to our first episode of this podcast series, celebrating International Women's Day, you know Women at Explio is a community where we embrace diversity and empower colleagues. Here, every member feel heard. Now, coming to our topic of this episode, Mental Health Awareness Week. This year, we are highlighting the importance and significance of community. And that is why this episode is called Find Your Tribe, Find Your Thrive. Do you know that we process around 72 gigabytes of information every day? Isn't that crazy? One of the 100 reasons that we are overwhelmed and stressed. As per World Health Organization's report, 15% of working age adults stressed and have mental disorder. As a result, globally, an estimated of 12 billion working days were lost every year to depression and anxiety at a cost of around $1 trillion per year in lost productivity. These statistics remind us why it is absolutely necessary that we talk about this subject and take necessary steps. This special week, we are working to make that vision a reality by showcasing the power of community in helping us all take care of our mental health. I'm delighted to introduce our lovely guests today who will be sharing insights about community and mental health in general. Marilyn, an experienced business analyst, transformational change consultant. Daniel, key account manager for one of the prominent Explio clients, and Tia, business and project analyst lead. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Let's start with talking about your weekends. Tia, what does a good weekend mean to you?
I'd say a good weekend for me is all about balance. So I like spending time with friends and family. I like also taking some time out for myself, so going on walks in nature or going to the gym. And then over the last few years, I've been renovating my house. So as you can imagine, that's taken up a lot of my weekends and spare time.
100%. What about you, Marilyn? How do you spend your weekends ideally?
To spend my weekends on me. So it's what I call me time. So I love to do things that I'm passionate about. I love to read. I could read a novel in a day. Or watch Greek movies. Maybe I love to go to the gym and to the library especially. So yes, I do like, I think my weekends are more about having me time and doing things that I enjoy to do, as well as spending time with the family.
That is brilliant. Even I like relaxing weekends. What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, I guess sort of a similar vein to Tia and Marilyn. A lot. I manage quite a stressful account, so spend a lot of time in meetings and talking to people and reporting, etc. So I very much focus on getting away from technology. Again, we all have our phones, but I try and move away from technology. I've got a dog, so I do a lot of walking. I still play football, so I play with the team. I'd like a bit of golf. So again, it's a mixture of downtime on my own and hanging out with friends and family.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now, my next question to you, Marilyn. How do you understand that you are getting stressed? Do you notice any symptom on your day-to-day activity? What is your sign that you are stressed?
I think it's when I start to overthink things. So when thoughts are just running through my mind and I'm just overthinking, I have to just kind of take a deep breath. Okay, something's happening in the background. I'm getting a little stressed over something. It could be an email, a random email has been received and it is highlighting a deliverable that I was unaware of, or where the deliverables landscape is unknown. I think for me, my mechanism is not overreacting or not going full speed ahead head, but learning how to actually take a deep breath, think about this whole situation and the lead up to that. So I would say definitely it's overthinking and being able to rein that back in and think about what exactly it is that I should be focusing on for the day, for the week, and just speaking to the right people to ensure that there's a positive outcome.
Thank you. And Daniel, what is your view? How do you understand that you are getting stressed?
Yeah, I think, I mean, mine's more of a, I guess, sort of quite a physical side. I mean, I know, when things start getting a bit heavy or I'm starting to feel a bit under the pressure, I notice that sometimes my sleep gets affected. So, of course, you may struggle to go. I might struggle to go to sleep because I'm thinking about the day or the day ahead. I might wake up in the night because of something that's going on. I'm thinking about it. One, I'd probably say, significant sign that I'm probably getting, again, that thinking process is getting stressed is I go quiet, because also my wife knows that I chat a lot. So when I go quiet, again, she knows that there's something's bothering me. So I think it perpetuates, doesn't it? I think that's sort of the big problem, because stress, it impacts people in different ways, doesn't it? And I know that's how sometimes that affects me, and it has a wider impact on your next day and your day after, and your people around you. So yeah, it's very difficult sometimes.
What about you, Tia?
I'd say for me, it's when I notice that I'm stressed, when all my tasks, responsibilities, everything that I've got to do is going on in my head all at the same time. And very much like Dan said, it spirals out of control quite quickly and becomes a vicious loop, because I'll sit down to try and tick one of those tasks off that's stressing me out, and I can't, because everything else is going on in my head at the same time. So I start to overthink things. Like Marilyn said, I get overwhelmed. But these days I'm much better at realizing when I start seeing those symptoms in myself. And I just have to sit down, take a bit of a breather. I like to write a list of everything that's in my head so that it gets it out of my head and onto paper so I could sit down and tackle it.
That is a brilliant idea, Tia. I think writing it down is very important to actually handle your mental health. So coming to my next question, and this is to you, Daniel. Do you believe that a man and a woman can experience stress differently?
I've got 3 daughters and a wife, so I'm surrounded by girls, and they're very, very vocal when it comes to emotion. And I get emotions, the first hand of their emotions sometimes, and it's great because they let it out, and they share it. And I think that's possibly one of the fundamental challenges between men and women, is the fact that the men's stiff upper lip, man up, get on with things, get on with it, move forward. You can't share your feelings, whereas obviously women are very exact opposite to that. And it doesn't bode well when if you are having stressful moments, you can't express it, or feel that you can't express it because of this, whether it's a male preconception. The world is changing. I think it's definitely, I think we're seeing a generation coming through where it's not so, I think you say the word old school, but obviously the narrative is that men can express themselves, and we're trying to get that message out to everyone, that is, if you're stressed, no matter who you are, you need to talk. So I think the way we are today is that it's important for men to speak up and express themselves. And like I said, I think the women are sort of the good role models for that.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for answering that. My next question to you, Marilyn. What motivates you to keep owning your day-to-day job at Explio?
Motivation is just, for me, it's just doing what needs to get done, and doing it with diplomacy, with a level of tenacity, and just really owning those deliverables. So motivation for me is all about, do I know what I'm doing? So if we think about Scrum, what did I do yesterday? What have I got planned today? Are there any challenges, any blockers? And then putting together some type of plan. And what keeps me motivated and motivational is just embracing what I do and love and be passionate about what I do. And if I'm not if I don't believe in what I'm doing, is having an open and honest conversation with someone to say, okay, well, you've asked me to do this in this particular way. However, I think it's really important to have an innovative mindset in all situations, because it's always good to bring new ideas and new ways of doing things to the table to at least have that discussion. So motivation for me is all about, what can I achieve today? What are the quick wins? What value can I put out there within the business, but also within the community. So I'm always striving to win, and to also support others, because your success is my success. That's how I see it.
Thank you, Marilyn. That's a great perspective. Tia, what motivates you to deal with stress and burnout at work or your personal life?
See, I would come from it from a slightly different side to yourself, Marilyn. You were saying deliverables are important, and although they're important to me, I thrive in a real social environment. So anyone who's done the Clarity 4D training, personality test training with Amanda Brown, I'm very yellow energy. I've got very high yellow energy, which means I thrive when I'm around other people. And I think that's what really helps me deal with stress. In the office, I love going into the office, having the team around me to support one another. In addition to that, I'm very fortunate that at the Bristol office, we have several initiatives and things going on throughout the month to help us deal with stress and burnout, and also to build that community with our colleagues as well. So the first one is Francis, who's one of our HR BPs, organises yoga in the office once a month, which I must admit was very strange to start with, doing yoga in the office, but it's actually created a real calming environment there for us. Once a month, after like a stressful month of trying to deliver what we need to deliver. And then we also have monthly socials as well within the Bristol office, which Dan went to the most recent one, which was bowling. We're both talking before this call about how we weren't that good, although I would say Dan was definitely better than me.
Would you agree, Dan?
Well, I wouldn't want to boast, but I didn't have my twinkle toes that night, but I was all right. Yeah.
Okay, so while we are talking about community, I'll ask you, Dan, what does a community mean to you?
Yeah, so I'm similar to Tia. I think I'm in that yellow sector, so I definitely thrive about being around people, and I also thrive about ensuring that people around me feel empowered, feel calm, feel approached, that I can be approachable, etc. So culture is a huge, and well-being of the especially my team is really important. So again, we make sure that the policies and the way we interact with each other is all consistent to support to support each other, because again, we all work in a stressful environment. We try our best to do some social activities in the office and at lunch times, but it's making sure that the culture is installed and people feel that they can reach out and talk to each other, help each other. Obviously, I'm part of a wider community called Talk Club, which is a mental health charity born in Bristol. I'm very much and heavily involved with that, and they have different communities. So you have Talk and Walk, Talk and Football, Talk and Golf, and Talk Club therapy groups. And I attend those as and when I feel that I need to be part of those communities, because again, we have our families, we have our friends, but sometimes the bigger issue around mental health is that sometimes you feel that you might not be able to talk to a family member, you might not be able to talk to a friend, but the Talk Club is all around mental health. So it's a different type of a community, but it's very specific to what you might be feeling. And again, most of them are strangers when you join. So again, I do tend to use those as and when I feel I need to.
And I know, Dan, that you are one of the mental health first aider within Explio as well. So how do you actually help your colleagues help navigate their mental health issues?
Yeah, so again, this was something I took the mental health first aider training about 6 months ago now, and it gives you the very basic tools to again, we're not counsellors by any stretch, but we're like we're there as a the terminology you're supposed to use. One of the tools they give you is algae. So you assess the situation, if there's any risk to that person, you listen, and non-judgmentally, because obviously you can't pass judgment on it, but you listen, you give information and reassurance that things are okay. You encourage and professional help if you feel that's the right signpost. You encourage professional help. And then the last E, which is you encourage personal help or self-help and support, where it may be, look, perhaps you should speak to a family member or some, a best friend at work or someone like that. They give you the basic tools to assess that situation and then move that person in the right direction. We've obviously got the company EAP system, which is open to anyone to access, but this is obviously the mental health first aider is a little bit more personal, and people know who I am in Bristol, and then you have ones in every region, so they're all signposted. So it's just really another layer of I say protection, but support that employees can have, and they can reach out to us if they need that additional bit of conversation and support.
I think it is absolutely necessary to have these kind of community, mental health community and mental health first aiders within every organization, so that the employees are supported in every way.
We do get together monthly to share our stories. Basically, we might have had different experiences, and we can share how we dealt with that and where we signposted that person. Obviously, we don't share details of the stories because confidentiality is a key topic. But we can share, we dealt with certain situations, and that's important. That once a month support.
And do you feel, Dan, that you're getting supported alongside that as well? So you get support from the others. Are you fully supported in that and any of the struggles? I can imagine it must be really difficult for you hearing other people's stories and taking that on yourself.
Yeah, it is. To be honest, I'm fortunate at the moment. The last couple of months right now, I haven't been part of very heavy topics. I know there are some out there, but I know one mental health first aider as lent on. So Talk Club have got a recognised counsellor, and they can come in once a month. So if we need that support, Explio will bring that counsellor in to offer one-to-one support. So it is there. So that's good.
Sounds fantastic, Dan. I think it's really important to have in the office and outside as well, having Talk Clubs. So
Totally.
Yeah, sounds really good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dan. And Marilyn, I'll come to you, and I'd like to understand what is your thought of community, and how do you see a community? What does a community mean to you?
Community is a subset of people that come together for the greater good of achieving a goal. They have an agenda and they work towards that. So there is a focus within communities.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. And Tia, are you aware or part of any other community within Explio, and have those helped you in any way?
Yeah, so I'd just like to say, Marilyn, you hit the nail on the head there with your description of community and how there's so many layers to it and the different forms of community. I thought that was great. Within Explio, I'm actually one of the leads within the Women at Explio community, with I think there's about 15 to 16% of women within the engineering and technology industry. Within the UK, there's only 15 to 16% of women in that industry. And sometimes that could be a bit of a lonely place if you're in a team with mainly men or people who don't necessarily understand, the unique challenges that you face as a woman in a male-dominated industry. So within the Women at Explio community, it's something that Priya created and founded back in 2022, and she's done a really fantastic and persistent job at bringing it where it is today. We've now grown to a network of about 90 members, and that's both women and allies. So it's important for us to have females and allies who have the same sort of set of opinions with the same goal to share, educate, and raise awareness about the unique difficulties that women face in the workplace. To come together and to share knowledge with one another. We host lunch and learns, coffees and chills, where we could just have a chat, podcasts like this one that Sarija hosts, and plenty of other events as well. So I'd say it's been fantastic being part of Women at Explio whilst being here.
Yeah, that is great. I'm a member of Women at Explio community as well, and I think it is a great community to be in and work for this community. I really enjoy that so much.
Did I mention, I'm part of Women at STEM as well as Women at Explio. So Yeah, there's lots going on in that world, and I think it's so empowering to see that women are coming together for the greater good to address some of their core concerns around how difficult it is for women to navigate careers within IT. I do think it's a platform that will continue to grow and thrive, and I'm looking forward to see what will happen in the future with Women at STEM, because I do think it's about educating the younger generations and trying to get them to see IT as not just someone in a dark room coding, but a creative space where you can really make a difference.
It's really inspiring to me to see that. I mean, I'm fairly early on in my career, so to see so many people, Marilyn, Sarija, Priya, all of the other women at Expio stream leads, everyone in this space who is coming together. And obviously, Dan, you're here to support the podcast. So yeah, it's great to see that people really are this space is full of inspiring people that are pushing to make that difference. It's great.
100%. Thank you both, Marilyn and Tia. So, I believe that we spend most of our times working on client projects or even on internal projects. So, Dan, how do you build a community within your client team? Have you faced any challenges trying building that? Because from my perspective, I'm a part of client team as well. Even if there are teams within that client team who are actually trying to organize different things for us so that we can socialize and have a community within. But sometimes it is difficult to prioritize that because we have so much work to do within a day. So being a account manager, how do you manage that within your team?
I think one of the, I mean, the underlying thing on all this, when you talk about communities and people and mental health, again, what I mentioned at the beginning is communication. So I think having the ability to, well, I go on into the client site and visit my team quite regularly. So again, that visibility, that visual contact and personal touch, the fact that I'm there and they can speak to me is really important. I also think we have regular touch points. So we don't just have obviously regular, I mean, in the business we call them drum beats, and they could be daily, could be bi-daily, bi-weekly, whatever. But I also make sure that there's a weekly call where we get together and just to talk about, just general. One of the mantras of Talk Club is, how are you out of 10? So when we start the meeting, we always ask each other how we are out of 10. So instantly, with the 5 to 10 people on there, if anyone said, in the scheme of it, if you're lower than if someone says I'm one being the lowest, 10 being the highest, if most people are saying there are 3 or 4, you start to build a picture of in the team of who's happy and who's sad, for want of a better term. Do you know what I mean? So making sure that we follow that mantra and make a note of those numbers to a point is A, easy, and B, very powerful to the point is, if someone's sitting next to you and they say there were 4 and last week there were a 4 and the week before that, systemically there's something wrong and you need to deal with it. So it's about having those forums in place that people feel that that you can gauge and understand where the problems might be. On top of that, again, trying to make it a bit more fun, like I mentioned earlier, we do try, people do shifts and different times, and some people work in the office, some people work on site, but we do try and do a monthly, a bit like we do with the Explio socials. We try and encourage a monthly get together. Now, I know every Thursday they bring food in and have a bit of a picnic on site, which is great, and that keeps the morale up. On other terms, we sometimes have a night out.
I also think it's definitely down, because all of those are absolutely great ideas, Danielle, but I also think it's how you communicate that to the staff, because if you demand and you're dictating to the staff members, this is where you need to sit.
Yeah.
I think that also can be demotivating. I think communication is the key. There has to be an open climate where you can ask of people, others, to do certain things, but it's the way that you go about it, and it's just being consistent.
Definitely. I mean, I think the beauty of where the client we work at is that they all enjoy sitting where they are because they're not far from the canteen. So I think that's a bit of a Billy bonus for them.
Most motivating place, I would say.
But near the coffee machine, exactly. Yeah, it's
Near the
the
food.
best place to be. Yeah, near the food. Yeah.
And what do you think? What is the role of a career manager or your line manager within the client team? How can they actually contribute to help you make yourself included within that community?
That's a good question. I think career managing and being a line manager on the client side, are two different things. And I think it's just having a balance, especially where the people that you career manage are also within your work within the same client. I think you have to be a little bit down to earth and relaxed about the situation and use the techniques and tools that Explio provide, because I do know that they've created a management and leadership training program. There is also how to conduct one-to-ones that will provide you with a subset of questions, such as Danielle had mentioned. How do you feel today on a scale of 1 to 10? It's just giving individuals a safe space to be open and honest and let you know if there's any concerns. I do think that if it doesn't go to one person, it will probably be heard by another. And if we've got that community in place where people understand the structure, they understand who to go to for certain issues or to process anything that's required, such as annual leave, whether that's or head of a particular profession, that they are comfortable to do that.
Thank you, Marilyn. Tia or Dan, do you want to step in here just to mention if you have seen anyone actually doing that in their career management or line management within client project?
I mean, I don't work necessarily on client site. I work more centrally and help the head of projects with the project management function and bringing project managers together. So that is about bringing the community of project managers together there to support one another. In terms of line management, I'd just like to share some of my experiences as to me what my best line managers have been like. So to me, it's about, yes, the deliverables, yes, understanding processes and being the one to turn to when you want to request leave. But for me, the best managers have been the ones who have wanted to know me as Tia, not just as an employee, and having that understanding that I don't just exist within work to complete the work there. I also exist in a world that's very different. My home life and work life, although some people see it as separate, are very much interlinked.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely points. So with that, my last question to all three of you. If in one sentence you can tell me, if someone feels lonely, what can they do to help themselves?
Having a best friend. If you're lonely, obviously that's an obvious thing for me. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I've got a lot of different. I've got my best friend's my brother, so I know that through thick and thin, I can reach out to him. Obviously, my wife is around, but again, it's more about sometimes having that neutral perspective on things. But talking, I think, is the key thing. I mean, it's one of my traits. It's talking. So I think the key thing, if you're lonely, is you need to reach out and talk.
I completely agree with that. Absolutely. First of all, if I'm feeling lonely, or if anyone's feeling lonely, I would advise just to go for a walk, get some fresh air in your lungs, have a little talk to yourself, and think about what you can do to stop being lonely. And this means going out, socializing, engaging, running through your phone. Who haven't I spoken to? I'm not saying go out and just pick up random strangers, but just take a strategic approach to, I want to get to know people. I want to, put myself out there. I want to live a more meaningful life. And what does that look like to me?
Thank you. And finally, Tia.
I would say take one leap of courage. Now, that one leap of courage might be after the walk that Marilyn was talking about, but one leap of courage to go do something out of your comfort zone, talk to someone, maybe join Women at Explio or Talk Club. So yeah, that would be my piece of advice.
Thank you very much for the insightful conversation, Tia, Danielle, and Marilyn. We hope this episode has inspired our listeners and audience. Please visit our Women at STEM website link provided below. Finally, remember that raising awareness acts as a reminder to look after our own mental health and that of our colleagues, friends, and families. Now, stay tuned for our next episode of this podcast series, and thanks for listening.